We continue living in a divided world of many people's hopes and dreams. Let's learn more about morality together. Section 12. The attack by fire. Sun Tzu said there are 5 ways of attacking with fire. The first is to burn soldiers in their camp. The second is to burn stores. The third, to burn baggage trains. The fourth is to burn arsenals and magazines. The fifth is to hurl dropping fire amongst the enemy. Let me just make sure I understood that. So, burning soldiers in their camp. So it's the act of catching somebody by surprise in their camp. Burning stores. I'm assuming that's not like a point of sale store, but rather a storage. Third, to burn a baggage train, how resources are communicated. Fourth, to burn arsenals and magazines, i.e. the weapons themselves, or the assets themselves. And fifth seems somewhat indiscriminate, just hurl dropping fire. If you have some way of modern warfare, you can do that as well. To carry out an attack, we must have means available. The material for raising fire should always be kept in readiness. There is a proper season for making attacks with fire, and special days for starting a conflagration. The proper season is when the weather is very dry. The special days are those when the moon is in the constellations of the sieve, the wall, the wing, or the crossbar. For these 4 are all days of the rising wind. In attacking with fire, one should be prepared to meet 5 possible developments. First, when the fire breaks out inside the enemy camp, respond at once with an attack from without. 2, if there's an outbreak of fire, but the enemy's soldiers remain quiet, bide your time and do not attack. 3, when the force of the flames has reached its height, follow it up with an attack, if practicable. If not, stay where you are. 4, if it's possible to make an assault with fire from without. Do not wait for it to break out within, but deliver your attack at a favorable moment. 5, when you start a fire, be to windward of it. Do not attack from leeward. Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember what windward and leeward refer to. One refers to upwind, one refers to downwind. But, yeah, no, I think, don't have the fire blazing toward your direction. Be in the direction that you expect all the soldiers to evacuate to, so you can fight them. So these are 5 possible outcomes. Fire just breaks out in the enemy's camp, so you should attack. If there's an outbreak, but like the enemy soldiers are quiet, they're in wait for you, so bide your time. It reminds me of like modern fire drills. We're encouraged to move quickly and quietly to maintain order and make sure that people evacuate safely. I had never thought of it in that context of war, though. So there are additional safety considerations with remaining quiet during an evacuation. But also, like, if they are quiet, means they have some idea what's up and they're not completely caught by surprise. The force of the flames has reached their height, then follow with an attack if practicable, but it's fine to stay where you are if that's not practicable. If it is possible to make an assault with fire from outside, from without, do not just wait, but deliver when favorable. These were all classified as 5 possible developments, and I guess these are not mutually exclusive either. So it's good that for this to be complete. Moving on, A wind that rises in the daytime lasts long, but a night breeze soon falls. In every army, the 5 developments connected with fire must be known, the movements of the stars calculated, and a watch kept for the proper days. Hence, those who use fire as an aid to the attack show intelligence. Those who use water as an aid to the attack gain an accession of strength. Accession. I don't know what this word means. I know many English words, but I guess it has similar meaning to access. So if you use water as an aid to the attack, yeah, I'm curious. By means of water, an enemy may be intercepted, but not robbed of all his belongings. What does this mean? By means of water, an enemy may be intercepted but not robbed. Oh, okay. Interesting. Unhappy is the fate of one who tries to win his battles and succeed in his attacks without cultivating the spirit of enterprise. For the result is waste of time and general stagnation. It's a fancy way of saying if all you do is just light everything on fire, and if you don't have an open mind, you're not going to grow as a general or as an army. So it's interesting. There's a computer game, FTL Faster Than Light, where enemies under fire will surrender, and they'll offer all kinds of interesting surrender terms, including offering to join your team. So Sun Tzu was onto something long before computers were a thing. Hence the saying, the enlightened ruler lays his plans well ahead. The good general cultivates his resources. Moving on. Move not unless you see an advantage. Use not your troops unless there's something to be gained. Fight not unless the position is critical. No ruler should put troops into the field merely to gratify his own spleen. No general should fight a battle simply out of pique. Maybe this is also part of the reason for the superstition about wait for the correct time to launch the attack. And take this in combination with earlier writings about surprising the enemy. Like, maybe not everything in this document should be taken at face value. But on the other hand, I wouldn't necessarily say wait for these particular days on the calendar year if you're enterprising and if your soldiers, if your army are not wildly superstitious in a way that is to your deficit, then using resources on whatever day is practicable might be a better enterprise. On the other hand, if you are able to make use of the calendar and your superstitious army believes that sees your actions and is able to see that you are to be trusted, they will fight for you. So it's tricky. It's a challenging situation. Moving on. If it's to your advantage, make a forward move. If not, stay where you are. Anger may in time change to gladness. Vexation may be succeeded by content. But a kingdom that has once been destroyed can never come again into being, nor can the dead ever be brought back to life. Hence, the enlightened ruler is heedful and the good general full of caution. This is the way to keep a country at peace and an army intact. So this section was about the attack with fire, or by fire. This is not about fire safety, although it does at some point have a digression that fire safety can turn enemies into allies. under the right circumstances, or it could at least leverage them in some way if you are enterprising about it. Obviously, attacking by fire when it's raining is not going to be super effective. Although, under special circumstances, maybe there is some condition where there's rain, but some more heavily guarded, more encamped enemy um, is caught because of the rain. They're caught inside a structure. But that seems like a special case. Modern warfare has special cases, so we might be due for an update on this Art of War document. I wonder who would write that. But yeah, it certainly helps to attack when it's dry. You should always have the materials for an attack. Obviously, this is said. There's also a section in here that if resources are being transported or stored, those could be targeted. So how can you have the materials for an attack without yourself also being a target for attack? You can't. You will be a target for attack by fire, even if you have resources to be prepared to attack. However, yeah, do your best. If the enemy, it's interesting too that one of these 5 developments, if fire breaks out in the enemy's camp, respond at once from an attack from the outside. So if a fire is broken out, you want to attack, but if the enemy soldiers remain quiet, bide your time and do not attack. There comes a question, not really addressed here, of say that your army is under attack by fire. Do you evacuate quietly or do you make noise as you attack? Do you want to be attacked and somehow catch the opponent in a trap, catch the enemy who think that they're catching you? Immediately by putting these conditions into writing that suggest if fire's broken out, you should attack unless you hear noises. You've telegraphed your plan to the enemy. Your plan might be a very good plan, but be cautious. It's interesting. Yeah, no, in chess and other strategy games, if your opponent thinks that they've tricked you, it's important to recognize that your opponent thinks that they've tricked you. Be careful about what you're doing. You might trick an opponent who thinks that they've tricked you, but they might be aware of that situation, that you think you're tricking them by them trying to trick you and so forth. You can get these crazy mind games going. But the better educated you are, the more chance you have of being one step ahead of the enemy. Yeah, when you start a fire, be to windward of it. Do not attack from leeward. Do not attack from behind the fire. Yeah, Oh, and a wind that rises in the daytime lasts long. However, a night breeze soon falls. So if you're attacking during the night versus during the day, the wind conditions will differ. And so will the spreading of fire. Needless to say, countless times throughout history, as camps have been attacked during the night, the surprise factor is overwhelming. So it's worth noting. But you can attack during the night, and a camp can be on fire for a very long time. Technology has evolved considerably, although I'm sure it was quite advanced to begin with even in this time. But yeah, those who use fire as an aid to attack show intelligence. Those who use water gain an accession of strength. So, yeah. In every army, the 5 developments connected with fire must be known. Not just for every general, but in every army. The army itself should be familiar with these developments. The army should be familiar with the movement of the stars and calculating them and keeping a watch for the proper days. Perhaps because, like how cicadas operate, if your army can predict your move, then when you make it, they will help you make it. If you catch your own army by surprise, it's going to be quite challenging. So these are interesting ways to think. There is some mention of the 4 winds, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, I forget where that is in here. But yeah, these are 4 days of the rising wind. Based on when the moon is in the constellations of the sieve, the wall, the wing, or the crossbar. Which again suggests attack by night. I guess you could attack by fire by day, but why would you? Although you might catch an enemy by surprise. So, yeah, what's the key point of this chapter? Like, other chapters seem to have an agenda of some way. This seems to just strictly be talking about tactics having to do with fire, and doesn't seem to have any agenda beyond that here. Although it suggests like attack intelligently and be enterprising, but it doesn't overly push a second agenda. Maybe I've missed something. When there's a saying toward the end, anger may in time change to gladness, vexation may be succeeded by content. This follows an earlier statement about no attacking just for your own gratification, but attack when it's profitable to do so. So I guess this saying about anger and so forth is more intended to try to help keep attentive the mind of a general who's questioning their own actions. Especially followed by the next sentence that, like, the kingdom that's been destroyed can never come again into being, etc. So if you're fully enterprising, be heedful and a good general, full of caution. That way you may keep a country at peace and an army intact. One could bring metaphors into contemporary politics here. I won't do that. Although it's fairly obvious how to do, but I won't do that here. But yeah, the enlightened ruler is something that the nation loves. And a good general, full of caution. Again, not an excess of caution to the point of being too afraid to exercise your duties, but having appropriate caution because war is dangerous. It's seen many times throughout history what the less successful engagements were. And these, well, at least as we look back at them through the records, we judge the generals who failed. We likewise judge the generals who were the ones who wrote the history books or controlled the narrative. Judging history is a challenging endeavor, of course. So, yeah, it's possible that records of those who succeeded were exaggerated. Records of those who failed might also be exaggerated the other direction. But to keep your country at peace and the army intact, it helps to have a good general who's full of caution, who cares about their army, who has an enterprising spirit, and an enlightened ruler is heedful of caution, or is heedful. So, like, an enlightened ruler understands these conditions, understands when it's appropriate um, to use what means, and ensures that he supports the general with the resources required to the extent that that's possible. You don't want to spend all your nation's resources on war, but you need to make sure that your general has the resources that they require. So, yeah, and I find it a bit sad in modern times. I won't overly dwell on it again. The amount of resources that are spent on war, when really intelligence goes a long way and character goes a long way, and these are things that are much harder to purchase. It's much easier to purchase things that are not in need. But yeah, I won't dwell on that too much. It's just sad in my mind, and I wish that we could find peace together. But even so, when we are attacking, attack by fire when practicable. Attack in a way that you and your army are coordinated on this and believe that you are doing the right thing together. Attack with tactics, because tactics tend to be successful, but an enemy can catch you off guard. So don't just stick to the playbook if your enemy knows what you are doing. But on the other hand, knowing what you are doing is useful. So yeah, it's tricky. Saying the enlightened ruler lays his plans well ahead. The good general cultivates his resources. Perhaps, yeah, even though this wasn't the focal point of the section, I do like that saying. An enlightened ruler, whether or not you tell everybody your general should understand what you're planning. However, yeah, they won't divulge all your details to everybody in your commandment and to all outsiders. But yeah, an enlightened ruler lays his plans well ahead. And a good general cultivates and does not waste his resources. So let's keep that in mind. Again, it's wonderful to be able to practice strategy games that help you over time practice your critical thinking skills. It doesn't have to be a computer game or a war simulation using a computer. Even turn-based board games can be useful for this purpose. So, yeah, it's interesting. And plus, games that are turn-based, you can review more easily later on if you keep a record of them. And this helps you build community with the people you review with and develop your skills together. So there's much to learn, much opportunity to learn, and a wealth of information available. I hope over time that both in our gaming, but also as many nations and governments throughout the earth, I hope that we can cultivate healthy nations that are also peaceful nations, that use our resources wisely, and that collaborate well with each other and so forth. That's my hope. I hope that we may find peace and prosperity. With that, thanks for listening, and take care.